Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in for another episode of Brief Let's Talk About It podcast. I have a very special guest for you guys today, but before we get started, I want to let you know that this is for educational purposes only, and this is a special birthday edition. So those of you that know me know that today is my son's birthday, and I have a guest, and I'm so honored and privileged that he has decided to join me to tell his side of the story, because you guys have heard my side of the story and everything. And this is my son's brother, Kane Steinbrecher, and he has an amazing story, and I'm so honored that he has joined me today. And you guys sit back, enjoy. Please leave questions, and hopefully this answers a lot of questions that you guys have had for me in the past as well. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up my next guest, and it's going to be a good one. Thank you, Kane.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
It's nice to be here. It's
Yeah,
a long time
and
coming.
yes, it has been. It's definitely been a long time coming. And you look great, by the way. So
I just got off
um,
work, so
so you leaving work, coming straight and jumping on a podcast and
yeah.
everything. So have you done many podcasts?
No, I think I've talked a lot in front of people, but I don't think there's been a lot of times where I've been done any podcasts. I've had a lot of experience telling my story to individuals, and I worked in residential care, so it's kind of been something I'm used to doing, but not in this sense. I'm excited to share this experience with in kind of a different way. And like it's exciting for me.
Yeah, it really is. Like I said, I've shared my story. I started sharing it probably maybe four and a half years, maybe 5 years now ago, and I was still going. It was so fresh, you know. I was still trying to figure out what that story looked like and things like that. And now it's been part of my life. Every step of the way, it's the healing journey of
Mhm.
of being able to be vulnerable and open about those things, and for the first time, I have the honor and the privilege of having, you know, um, Jake's sibling on. And so, before we get started, introduce yourself. Tell people where you're from, and then we're gonna jump into your journey.
Yeah, my name is Kane Steinbrecher. My little brother is Jake Steinbrecher. Um, I'm 8 years older than him. It's so Tony was in my life when I was real young, and has been there ever since, in and out. And I currently live in Westboro. I laughed when Tony said, "Where am I from?" I've lived in 4 different states, so I'm 24 now. We knew each other. I was in Colorado. I lived there for about the majority of my life, but I've been out here since I was 12. No, it's closer to 14 actually. Um, but yeah, it's that's yeah, I guess that's who I am. I talked about it a second ago. Like I had worked in residential care, so um, like Tony, like everything that he's put into um, his organization. I am a certified peer specialist for the state of Massachusetts. Um, my experience has been working with youth in um, the Department of Mental Health, and now I'm working with children that are in the Department of Child and Families, so Child Protective Services, mostly. And so using lived experience on my end of kind of going through a lot of this trauma and my own stuff, that using that to help kids that end up were system and our system involved. Um, but I've been in school for a couple of years now, so I'm now going towards adventure therapy and uh, kind of outdoor leadership side of things. So it's always evolving, and I think
Yeah,
it's always interesting to learn how to apply your experiences to new things, so
this is very, very true. Let's go on that journey. Because when I came into your life, you were young, right?
yeah, I was 6 or 7. um I was really young. uh
yeah, yeah.
I Yeah, 6 or 7 at least. um
Was
I because yeah,
let's
I
see,
think you
because
knew
they
me,
were
and
born 2007,
I was 7. So he was 8 when I was 8 when he was born.
right?
Um,
Because it's
and
been
how long were
7
you
years.
with my mother before then?
We weren't together long. We were together maybe 6 months before she got pregnant. Because remember, I used to live down in Denver, and
You
you
lived,
guys used to
yeah,
come down there. Yeah, and that's when she bought the condo in Loveland, and
yeah.
that's when I left Denver and moved up to Loveland when she was
So
pregnant.
I was in the second grade. Um,
Yeah, yeah, because you was
I
over at
had
BF Kitchen, weren't you?
Yeah, because I was in second grade when you guys at least got together. But I'm a little young for my grade, so yeah, I was, yeah, 6 or 7. I mean, it's interesting though because I don't think I think we'll kind of get into the wildlife that that is kind of why me and Tony know each other. That Tony's actually known me longer than I've actually known my father, which is because my mother's an interesting person that put people through a lot of stuff, and one of those things was really isolating her children from their fathers, whether
Mhm.
some of them are better than others. And I think Tony was really wonderful for Jake and for a large part of my childhood. That it was interesting that until uh, things got really bad for my family, after Jake was born and Tony started getting isolated from being able to have contact with Jake or our family, um, to no fault of his own. And we were put into child protective services was until I met my father. So Tony knew me before I knew my family, um, or the people that are related to me. So it was one of those things that when I connected with Tony more recently was um, kind of talking about the experience of knowing someone for so long, but having gone through so many waves of trauma, but also just like going in and out of each other's lives. And now I'm very different person from when Tony knew me. So
And we'll talk about that
we'll talk
because
about that too.
I have not said anything just yet. So, what I'm saying? Fly first, everybody, but it's a beautiful thing, right? You know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to say anything just yet, but um, when you were a child, and I was in your life, we both had to deal with some crazy stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to throw your mom under the bus anymore. She's thrown me on the bus more times than I can even count.
No, she
You
ruined my life.
She,
like
she
I
did. She did a number on all of us, man. And people really don't believe me when I say she got me fired from jobs. She got me evicted. She got 2 of my vehicles repossessed. I'm like, no, y'all don't understand. This woman stalked me. I remember her calling the police on me when I was over at Dave's house helping him in his garden.
Yeah.
I was like, I wasn't even. And the cop was like, well, she said there's a restraining order. I said, from where? I've never been served a restraining order. I was like, holy crap, man.
Yeah, I've never been afraid to do that either at this point. I think I'm gosh darn lucky that I'm sitting here today,
Yeah.
alive and well, and for a layer, many reasons, and abuse, neglect. um I think I think even, I'm 24. It's not easy for anybody to say, I don't want contact with my mom ever again,
Yeah.
and it also is, and that the thing is that me and Jake have another sibling, and it's the same way, and she's older than all of us. And, um, time and time again, I see this woman, uh, continue to be isolated and left behind because of her behaviors. And, I don't want to make this focus about her, because it's who we are now and how we've moved on, because I'm not that, I'm not, it is a part of my story.
Oh yeah.
And I wouldn't be here or the way I am or gone through what I did. Um, and to be sitting here, December 18th, 2023. I remember December 18th, 2007, the day Jake was born. And, even then, I was 8. You were just trying to stick it. I mean, trying to stick it together for this kid you were creating.
Yeah. I was 32.
Even then there was the gigantic red flags popping up. So I'm I go back and forth about who got the worst end of the stick here.
Well,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
But
But
it's
when you
it's
think
it's
about it,
gosh, it's freaking amazing that this one person can have almost like a nuclear bomb effect on so many people's
right,
lives.
right. And you know what? It's not a. I think we all equally, in our own ways, caught the short end of the stick. And we've always had to bounce back, right? Because like you said, I go back to the day that Jake was born. I was there, and I remember what she told me in the hospital room. When she said, "Why are you here?"
Mm-hmm.
She pretty much said, "Why are you here? Like, you don't need to be here." Then she wouldn't let me sign the birth certificate. Then the names that we had for Jake, she wouldn't let me put the names on the birth certificate, right? And I was just like, wow, okay. And the crazy part about it is that, I look back on it now, I sometimes can laugh, because there was a lot of healing that had to come from there. And if it wasn't for her, right? And this is what I say, and I tell people where I appreciate her, right? Because she was who she was, and the damage that she was able to cause in that amount of time, was just truly amazing, right? She tore me apart. She tore each and every last one of us apart. When I moved out of the picture, when I finally said enough is enough, I left, and then it left you guys in the house,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I didn't know everything that was going on, because although I was trying to come back, she had told me, she was like, "No, you don't. I don't want you to come back and see him anymore, right? I'm just going to take you to court."
Mm-hmm.
And during that process, this woman stripped me of everything I had. She stripped me of who I thought I was, um, and I watched how it affected you guys' life. And I just told myself, I said, I'm not. I have to see this thing through. I have to see this thing through. If I don't see it through, you know, ain't no telling what's going to happen. And although December 18th, 2007 was the best day of my life, what came after that, I didn't really understand, because we have really good memories of flying the kite. So remember the area where we used to go and fly the kite at, and they used to always go across the fence.
Well, I think back to my childhood, and I grew up not knowing a single one of my grandparents. Right. I didn't know my father. I knew my sister. I knew my mother. And then I knew the first people that I knew outside of those, other than friends of the family that we gained and lost because, people run away from the fire, was was you. You know what I mean? And I think it was interesting because you grow up as a child and you believe what your parents say.
Right.
But even as a child, I remember sitting in these situations and she's making you to be like worse than the devil.
Oh yeah.
And I look back to my entire childhood and I can't think of one thing that was you actually, was ever threatening or bad. You were always there. And I remember these like formative memories of my childhood that like, I mean, not really to his fault, I guess, was my father wasn't there, right? It's like flying the kite, or you walking me to school, or you making meals for us and or barbecuing or taking me fishing and these things that like, were so like, and I mean, you lived with us for not super long, right? A year or two. You were really there though. We were at your house all the time. You were
Yeah.
at our house. I mean, you saw my dog die. Like, like
Yeah.
there's a lot that like that was there. And then, but you go back to Jake's childhood to the day that he passed away, and you had a house the whole entire time. You showed up to every supervised visit that ever happened. You paid every dollar of child support. You were there till the day you didn't miss a visit to the day he died, which you know and I think the hardest part about the grief for me with Jake was how things ended up ending with my mom. Was we were put in child protective services.
Right.
They contacted my father, who's not Tony, obviously. I mean, look at me. And
What
and
you trying to say?
right, and and was like, when I was 12 years old, and was like, hey, do you want to take him? Like, and or and I was like, I don't want to be in this hell pit anymore. And you think, I don't think anyone expects their 8-year-old brother to pass away. So I'm like, okay, when he's like 16, he'll realize things are crazy. He'll call me up. I'll be an adult. We'll figure
Yeah,
it out.
we're figuring it out.
Like, and, and then me being in Massachusetts where my father was at the time, moving out here, and kind of losing contact with Jake, was that like, up to the day that boy died, that you were there, no matter what what this woman was saying about you, what she was throwing you under, it was about Jake. And
Yeah.
and the thing was is that the last time I ever saw Jake was behind my mother's back at your house on a visit to Colorado when I was like 14. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And that was kind of something, that was because he was at your house and I was not really, even at the time, I tried to have a relationship with her till I was 19, which I guess we can get into that story later. But it's
Yeah.
I tried, and then you think when you're a kid, and my sister says the same thing. It's like you think when you're a kid, you go, I really hope this makes sense when I'm an adult, and then you're an adult and it still doesn't make sense, or it gets
Right.
worse, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't even try to make something like and it's highlighted with how like from the start of Jake's life to the end of his life did he endure that and in some way, and to everything you could do, you were, and so it is interesting because I go back to my whole childhood, right, and have these like you were at performances at my school, or you came, or like I think you came to like father daughter day, which I guess, break it now, I'm trans. So like Tony knew me as a little girl, right? And I will always be Jake's big sister because I mean he, to the end of my, he was so excited to have a brother, but it was for until he was I came out when I was 15, so there's only like a year that I wasn't in close contact with him that I was his brother.
Yeah. I
That
mean, you guys had a
that
close relationship.
yeah, and that, and I think that's another thing, right? There's that like I the stuff going on after Jake was born,
Oh man.
like I don't know, was such a form of manipulation and isolation and abuse and neglect that, Jake was born, Tony was forced out of our lives, did everything he could to show up to every visit. He's not my father. I mean, but on top of whatever was being said about him at the time that wasn't true. I mean, as Tony said, like, this was while he was losing his apartment like twice, stalking at his jobs, calling his jobs. He had close friends in our neighborhood because when Jake was born, lived in the house together. Tony's a sociable guy. We had a Vietnam veteran who lived behind us, who like loved to garden, right? Like, it was just like these instances where, like, having to be in those situations that, like, my mother came in and out of drug and alcohol abuse for all of her adult life, all of her life. When Tony started to have a relationship with her, that wasn't as much in the picture. Around when I was born, she stopped using really, really hard drugs. And, once Tony left or had to leave, and my oldest sibling was like, I can't be around this anymore. Like, I'll, try to do the best to escape the country from this woman. And her friend die, that she picked up alcoholism. And that's where, like, the brunt of the abuse was for my childhood, was from, 7, 8, even though I can remember some of it younger, up through to Child Protective Services taking us away, which isn't easy to do in a sense, you know what I mean? And so it for me and Jake, like I mentioned earlier, my mom did a pretty good job of isolating our family from anybody that could help, that wasn't thinking my mom was a good person, right? There wasn't a grandparent to see what was going on. I mean, there wasn't someone to stop or see, or if you're being told, like, hey, do you want to be taken away from me? Like, you got to, whatever it was that, from the point Jake was a little kid, a baby, to going through foster care together, and the hell that was, to the point that we were putting, where we endured more abuse, to be then being put, separated. I was Jake's protector and he was mine, which is a lot to say, to be honest. It was, I can think of times where Jake was a toddler and taking abuse so I didn't, which is, so it really is, for me and him, was, my whole relationship with him was really like this, was not like regular siblings. I mean, he's 8 years younger than me, so like there's some sense of like separation. I'm basically a different generation,
Right.
but that it was a very, very impactful relationship, and I was very, very close to him. And I think that's what made losing him so hard, is because when I was moved to Massachusetts, I fell apart, and the reason I'm into being a certified peer specialist is because I was hospitalized for a large portion of my adolescence for psychiatric reasons. Trauma, to be most of it, which develops into more and bigger, badder things. And with a family as complex as my family with mental health and addiction, it became the perfect storm. And so, when I was 16, I was in a psychiatric hospital after I tried to commit suicide after all this. So losing Jake, I had that guilt, that was like layers of guilt. And, so yeah, me and Jake were really close. And I think that's why grieving was so hard. And I think losing anybody is hard, but when you have that many layers of like, could I have done something? Should I have been there? Should I have said something earlier? Could I have stayed? I could have gone back to her, but I was like, I had a better option. So it was like,
yeah. But the good thing about it was though, I was patient enough as going through the courts and everything, and that was 2.5 years of hell, right? Supervised visitations, as you already know, paying for the visitations, going to court. I mean, not only was the courts dragging me through the mud, but it allowed her to drag me through the mud too. And no matter what they did to me, I mean, hell, I was already, I think, for 6 months out of that time, I was homeless because she got me evicted. Then I got into another place and she got me kicked out of that one. I was like, whoa, how is she figuring out where I'm at? So finally I get into a place. And the crazy now here's the part that no one saw, right? So at the same time where you were going to your dad, right? Jake was still over at the
foster care. Yeah.
I don't want to say her name, but in foster care, right? So you were going. I just got into a place. As I'm getting into this place, your mom gets hit again, right? So they catch her abusing Jake during a visitation. So no one knew that, right? And I was like, how in the world? So now they're like, okay, you know what I'm saying? We want to put him with you. And I was like, okay. So I get into my place. I go to the courts. They finally give me partial custody. So your mom still has primary custody over him. I now got him over the weekends and 2 days out of the week. So, and they were like, are you okay with that? I was like, yeah, I'm definitely okay with that. Give them to me. I don't care. And so now that didn't last long because what had ended up happening, your mom got mad because I didn't take him on the day that she was supposed to have him. So she dropped him off over my house and I was supposed to go to work, but I can't go to work. And then she comes and gets him 2 days later. Now, I don't know where he goes. She's not giving me no information on nothing.
No.
So finally,
it's parent when it's convenient to her. I mean,
yeah, when it's convenient for her, right? And so now, and I think in that present point in time, I'm learning how to be a father, a true father. I'm learning how to be I'm learning how to be a man, but not just a man, a good man, right? You know what I'm saying? Because Jake deserved that, right? And everyone else around me deserved it as well. So I had to do a whole lot of those, going through and rebuilding myself and things like that. And then finally it happened. Your mom started working 3 jobs. I started having Jake 98% of the time. It was always just me and him, no matter what, just always me and him. And he was telling me stories about, because your mom still badmouthed me to Jake, right? And Jake used to always come to me and say, Daddy, just so you know, mommy don't like you. I was like, well, okay, that's fine. That's okay. And I was like, that's okay, Jake. I was like, look, it's in this life, there's going to be people that like you and people that don't, but you never hate anyone. And the kid had a heart of gold. He had a heart of gold. He would give you the shirt off his back and then some. And you know what I'm saying? When it came down to it, he's going to protect you. And I've always instilled that in him. Hey, bullies or anything like that, you always put yourself in between the bully and the other individual. That way you make sure that, because a bully is not going to stand up to someone that's going to fight to him. So he became a great protector. I said, okay. I said, now these are the steps that we need to take. I need you to teach me how to be a good father, and I'm going to teach you how to be a better man than me. And that was our agreement. And me and him rocked it. Look, man, that little dude rocked it, man. Every step of the way. It was just always me and him, always me and him. And he used to, and again, I'm going to go back. He used to tell me about the things that your mom used to do. And I used to always tell him, I said, as long as you're with me, I'll never let anybody else hurt you. And he was like, well, what about my sissy? I said, when the time comes, you're gonna. I mean, but I'm just, I'm just saying
Yeah.
that's what he said, right?
Yeah, no, that. Oh, yeah. I mean, that was the deal. I was his brother,
Yeah,
but he called me a sissy. That's what he
yeah.
knew
He
me as.
was.
That was the day I was
Uh,
born.
he was like, "What about my sissy?" I said, "You can talk to her anytime that you want to, and things like that. If you get a phone number you want to call, we can call.
Mm.
So that's never a problem. Which I've always made that known. You know what I'm saying? Hey, if you ever want to call and talk to him, by all means, call and talk to him. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That he has his own room. He'll go in the room and talk to you about everything that's going on.
Yeah.
And I tell you, it was the best. It was the best time of my life, right? Just watching him grow up, um, to be a part of his life, um, was the best for me.
Yeah. I'm like tearing up. It's hard because there was a certain point where I think when I first lost him, that I think the first thing I said was like, how could I not live if he's not here? Like that would be selfish, you know what I mean? And then the guilt hits, and I have more than my fair share of complex mental health issues, and I once I got through that though, and I didn't take it well. I did not take his loss well. I couldn't do anything to grieve but be by myself. I was in another state in a locked psychiatric hospital pretty much by myself in the sense that I had my sister who was around. That was it in a sense. And I couldn't go to a funeral. I couldn't even live stream a funeral. I couldn't do anything. But I think the biggest thing that I took from it was what you were saying was like, I don't know how such a small child can show you how to be a properly good
Right?
adult man. Everything that like I think I'm like, oh, like I don't know how like this 8-year-old boy knows how to be a proper man, but like, I came out when I was 15 and I came out to him. So uh July of 2015, I had like a really massive suicide attempt. And it was after like a series of like 9 hospitalizations that had happened over a year or two. Um, and the January beforehand, I had come out as trans, and I hadn't told Jake. And I was trying to figure out how, but I wasn't really talking to him because the bulk of my trauma was around my mom, and I was not talking to her. I think the fall before I had come out, she had gotten a DUI
Yep.
somehow. After like I work in the system now. I don't know how she got her child back. I don't know how after me and my sister and Jake's everything that it could happen that she could get him back. And then on top of that, get a DUI. It was just this whole mess, right? And at that point, I stopped really talking to her after she called me drunk with Jake in the house. After this is me in Massachusetts. After she got Jake back. After I think what ended up happening was I figured it out. I had my own meltdown. She called you, picked up Jake, and by the
Yep.
time the cops got there, Jake was with you.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that happened, and then like not too long afterwards, she got a DUI that people tried to keep secret from me. And then I found it online because I just Googled her
Yeah.
at the time. And so there was these layers of stuff that I could not have a relationship with her. But because of what was going on, I couldn't really contact you. And Jake wasn't really with you all that much. And the only conversation I could have with Jake was through her. And she would physically hurt Jake if he tried to tell me anything that was going on during the phone call, and would so I couldn't. So but I didn't have your number or there was there was no way for me to contact you, because to contact you I would have to contact her, and my dad, it wasn't really made sense. So at that point I wasn't contacting him, and so after the suicide attempt, saved my life, was in the ICU, got put in a holding facility for a month before I got sent away for a year to the state hospital. Right. And I called him for the last time I ever talked to him there, to tell him what was going on, which is a hard thing to just try to I guess he was 7 at the time, to tell him, hey, I'm so sad that I now have to be in a hospital. I didn't tell him nitty gritty details, but that's kind of a hard thing. But also telling him right, but then also having to tell him also, by the way, I'm trans, right? In this whole thing, and but the only thing he asked me was, I still call you sissy, right? he was just so excited. He was like, I have a brother now, sweet. Now we can do boy things, and I was like, whatever that means. I mean,
he was gonna teach you how to do boy things, okay? So he was really good about that.
But I took his examples
for you though. So when your mom, when I got the call, Jake had called me. Jake called me, and he very briefly, I was in the middle of a workout. He called me. I looked down. When I picked up, he had hung up. And I was like, maybe he's just calling to say good night. It is that time for him, right? But that's unusual. He normally don't hang up. So when I went to go call back, he was calling again. Mm-hmm. I said, hey, Bubba, what's going on? He was like, Daddy, can you come and get me? Mommy's beating me. Mm-hmm. I dropped the phone, went and jumped in my truck. I headed on over there. I called the police as I'm going. I said, y'all need to meet me over there, because if I go in this house and this woman is doing anything to my kid, I am going to break her neck. It's like, sir, I was like, I'm going to get my son. So it's up to you whether or not if you want to get there before I do. Mm-hmm. But I'm not stopping. I'm going to get my son. She's beating on him. I got to go get him. I went over there, and the scene was something out of a freaking movie. I push open the door because it was cracked. Jake's laying on his back, and he got your mom's arm, one of her arms, and he's trying to kick her. And he's on the ground. He's trying to kick her, and your mom is standing over top of him like this. And I go in. This is what I see. I automatically grab her, and I throw her up against the wall. I grab my son. I pick him up. I said, you okay? He goes, yeah. I go get in the truck. He went and got in the truck. I turned around to her. I said, don't you ever come around us ever again. And as I'm walking out the door, the cops are coming up. They was like, hey, I was like, I don't want to talk to you. I told y'all are too far from here. I had to drive clear from across the other side of town to come over here and get him. Y'all was supposed to beat me over here. So I don't want to hear nothing. I'm taking my son and I'm going home. The one you need to deal with is right there. And I jumped in the truck and I took off. The cops never said anything. Mm-hmm. So now Jake is with me. Jake is with me. I told him, I said, look, we're going to figure it out. We're going to figure out. So play dates, school. I'm the one who got him into school. I'm the one who took care of all of those things. Your mom didn't. Look, your mom can say all of those things, but I'm telling you, he was with me all the time. And I was like, look, it's just me and you, Bubba. You know what I'm saying? You let me. You gotta be patient with me, right? Because I'm still learning these things. He goes, well, you gotta be patient with me because I'm still a kid. I said, okay, we're in agreement there, right? And it's always just me and him, always just me and him. And then your mom pulled a fast one on me. She got CPS to come over to the house, and they was like, well, she does have primary custodian over him. I said, what does that mean? Give him to me. Give him to me. No, we can't. She has primary caregiver
Well,
status.
I mean, it's the times that Child Protective Services failed us is wild because we were taken away from my mother in February, at very end of literally the last day of February of 2012.
Right.
November of 2011, things that were getting really, really, really bad.
Right.
And my oldest sibling was in the military and was stationed in Japan. The level of isolation that I had to be able to get help or have someone notice was so high that was, and so I my mom was at work because she was a functioning alcoholic who could keep a job, so no one noticed. And I was home from school or something, and my sister would wake up in Japan. There was a time difference that I could call her where she would just be able to pick up the phone. And I called her on Skype, and I used my mom's computer, and I called her and I said, this is what's going on. And I had gone around the house and collected all of the bottles of alcohol that I could find that my mom had hidden around the house to show her how bad it was, to show my sister. And my sister from Japan called Child Protective Services. And at that time, Child Protective Services came to my school and came to Jake's school. Jake was 3, maybe 4, 3, probably 3-ish, and interviewed us. And I remember I was sitting in class, and they called me out to the office, and I sat down with this woman, and I told this woman everything. I told her the levels of use, what was going on, how bad it was, full detail. I had been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 2010, which I was taking care of as a 10-year-old by myself. I had my first hypoglycemic episode by myself because my mom was drunk. Wow, right? And on top of physical abuse and all this stuff going on, I told this woman everything. Went to Jake's school, did the same thing. That woman that day went to my mom, who was home, and interviewed my mom. They let us come home and then re-arrived that afternoon after my mom obviously knows CPS has been called. How has CPS been called? Well, maybe put it together, knows that I contacted my sister, knows that I did it, let us come home and sat us together and went, so you're old enough to call 911, right? And I went, yeah. And they're so everything you told us, can you repeat that in front of my mother? And I went, no, I was lying because right. And they went, okay, so you can call 911, right? If she gets drunk. And I went, I guess so. And they went, okay. And they left. 4 months later, I came home, and I'm 24 now. I didn't know at the time how serious this was. I can now tell that you have to be very intoxicated to be passed out drunk and piss yourself.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so I found her at 1:00 on an afternoon on a Wednesday in my living room, barely conscious. Saw her piss herself in front of me. She then kind of regained consciousness enough to chase me around and have to beat the shit out of me, where she then was like, and my mom had this habit of, I wouldn't say it's a habit, this abuse tactic of when she would get really, really drunk, she would unplug all the phones and take all the phone batteries out and hide them so we couldn't contact anybody.
Yeah.
And she was so drunk that she didn't do that. And I was able to take her cell phone, and I called a family friend at the time who had known me since I was in kindergarten.
Yeah.
And I went, hey, can we just like come over to your house? Like, just putting that out there. Like, and she was like, yeah, like that's fine. I'll pick you up. And she came in and saw this and was like, oh God. Picked my little brother up. She had permission to pick my little brother up because she had done it she did it all the time. So she wasn't a big deal. So, like, just walked in, got Jake. And we went over to her house and I spent the night there. And she dropped me and Jake off at school the next morning. Don't know when, but at some point in time during that day, she ended up in the hospital, my mom, with a blood alcohol level that was like 0.36, something ridiculous, something that's like almost unlivable. Which was like the next day. So like, don't know. And they were like, where are your children? That's a good question,
and
right?
she didn't have an answer.
And that's when CPS came to like my school and stuff and was like, which I had been at school the next day, like nothing happened. You know what I mean? Like, and I didn't know where I was going that night. Didn't know if I was going back there. Didn't know if I was going back to the family friends. Didn't know if I was going back home. Didn't know. And that's when they took custody. Which is a lot, you know, and so, you know, I think and then I work in the system now, so like this reunification thing is tough because at the same time, where does a kid go if they can't go home? But they had a home to go to, you know what I mean? They had you. It wasn't like this kid was like going to their parent or going into a group home that they had to pay for, the state had to pay for or something, right? Like, or a foster care. And then this kid had to endure more abuse. And it's documented. You know what I mean? Like, you can say it, I can say it, we can both. We're not lying. You know what I mean? And so
think about it, though, like the amount of things that were done, right? When we tell, like we both know, right? But imagine telling someone that was never there about everything that has happened. They would look at us as if we're making this thing up, right?
Well, and I laughed earlier because I remembered this because I ended up reconnecting and because I work in the field now with a therapist that worked with me when I was in this hospital program when Jake died. She was the one that told me Jake died, right? And I reconnected with her and she said, your mom is just as crazy as Donald Trump. If she could destroy the world, she could.
Yeah. Yeah.
and you know, the way she twists and turns and uses her power. You're a man of color, who has who has a past. You know what I mean? She is a white woman who is like who can spin a story. And you know, and I don't want to make this about like her, but like I remember being in, this is before CPS was involved, having to go into court and lie to a judge and tell her that she didn't try to throw a rock at a woman because they were playing football in our yard and we had a shared yard and a condominium. And she threw a rock at a woman and then made me lie to a judge to say the woman framed her. You know, and so it's interesting, you know, and this is really the first time to say it, that like, and it's weird because this follows me, you know. It follows me where I go. I don't know if it's this way for you, but I share a last name with this woman. So when people Google me, Jake dying comes up. I've had employers and people who are looking to, like, if I've been trying to get an apartment, go, is this your mother? Is this your dead brother? Is this a video of your brother dying? You know, or go like, or have people be like, I'd start talking about the Insider Edition or something, or like my partner brings
Oh
it up,
yeah, I was there. I
right?
was there for that. Yeah, I was there during that interview. So there's a whole section that I was talking to the reporter that's not even in there.
Right, and so it's like these things
A
that
whole section.
this comes up, right, and for me, and people don't hear the truth.
No one is talking about
I
what?
don't really use Facebook. Neither does my partner, or anybody. Um, but when you go through this level of abuse with somebody, and you get stalked, and you see this happen, you have to know what people are doing.
Right.
And I still see this woman try to paint herself like she's the victim,
Oh, she's good about
where
doing that.
there are 3 children, 2 don't talk to her, and 1 is dead, which, no matter how you paint it, is probably her fault. And you still see her trying to say that she's not the problem. And where are her other 2 children on the websites? You know what I
This is
mean?
very true, right? And you
And
know,
and and I worked as a certified peer specialist, now as a peer mentor, and I worked as a case manager. Now I'm working, doing outdoor activities with kids in the system. Um, and it's an everyday battle to not be her, or be like, to make myself someone that is not that story, but also use it to empower people or to motivate
right,
myself,
right,
because there are so many times that this situation, right, has led me to almost dying, whether it's bad choices in my life, suicide attempts, drug use, or putting myself in risky situations, whatever it is, being put into foster care and enduring abuse, right? Um, whether what levels of it, that there's still somebody walking around who is not who can is on a high horse on top of all of these people that lives have been destroyed.
right.
And it's an incredible experience to sit here with you and be here, and to say that we aren't that person, and I think that was a part of grieving Jake's death, was saying, like, I don't know if I should have been the one out, right? Like, or whether that, I think that's a guilty thought, but it's like, to think about, like, to see the situations you ended up in, or all these things, to be lucky, and to, but gosh, let me tell you, do I know the type of people to avoid now? You know what I mean? Like, she
Very
teaches
true.
you something. She teaches you something, and
And
you know
you
what I
know
mean?
what? You know what? That reigns true. And I told everybody, I said, regardless of everything that this woman has ever done to me, she was my best mentor, my best teacher, because now I know what I don't want, right? And the
Yeah.
things that, and people don't, I mean, when I tell people about the things that she's done, they just look at me like, I was like, look,
Well, it's
it's
like
like
you're reading
somebody who
a
never,
horror novel, or like a post on
right.
the
It's
internet,
like
or
something out of a horror movie, man. You
like
know,
someone would write a book. It's like White Oleander. It's like a book someone would write. Like, it's
right. Like no one does this, or at least that's what people think. But after doing research, after I began to rebuild myself, and it took a whole lot. Um, it took a whole lot to get to where I was at, to be a good dad to Jake, and um, to just be there and live life with him. In a way to where I had to learn how to forgive a lot.
Yeah.
It's not that, you know what I'm saying, these things did happen, and it did happen to me, right? As well as to you and to Jake and you know, and to the older sibling, and to a lot of other people as well, right? Because she put up that facade, and you know how many people I had that used to just look at me and like, oh, that's the one that Caroline was talking about. And I used to look at them like, I don't even know you. I don't even know you, but already you got your nose up to me. And then next thing you know, a couple months go by, they're coming through and going, I'm sorry, I misjudged you. I go, what do you mean? Well, you're nothing like what she says, and she's crazy. I was like, oh well, okay, not a problem. You know, it is what it is.
Mhm.
And to be able to rebuild myself from that to be a somewhat decent human being, it was definitely worth it because I
Yeah.
never thought I would have to go through something like that, but I did, and we all did, and so we take those experiences. At least for me now, I take those experiences, especially when I run across certain situations, and I go, you know what? I get what you're going through. I may not understand it because you're going to go through it and perceive it from your own perception.
Oh
But
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? But
for
I
sure.
get what you're going through. And maybe, just maybe, some of the things I had to do in order to become a better version of myself, maybe I can share that with you.
Hmm.
Um, and then and then I have to say, you know, when Jake was overdosed, it was the most horrific feeling I've ever had. Because that day, and a lot I talk about it, but I don't talk too much about it. But that day, I had taken Jake over to his best friend's house, Gio. They grew up there. They was growing up together, right, over at the school, and him and Gio was like two peas in a pod, man.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Then I found out that Gio's mother is a good friend of mine.
Hmm.
So I know his mother, his stepfather, his brother, all of his siblings through a mutual friend that I met through fishing. And so everything came full circle. So I'm sitting up there. I was telling Gio's mom one day, not knowing that Jake and Gio knew each other. And I was like, yeah. And she goes, hold on. What's your son's name? I said, Jake. Jake what? I said, Jake Steinbrecher. She goes, hold on. Gio. Gio comes in there. He goes, who is your best friend's name? Jake. And she goes, what is Jake's last name? And he goes, and Gio couldn't speak too well. Steinbrecher. Right?
No, you can say my last name. It's fine.
Right? You know what I'm saying? And so she looks at me, she goes, hold on, you mean this whole time that we've been knowing each other, that I know your son because your son and my son are best friends in school? Like, they get in trouble, all kinds of things together, right? Like, I'm serious. Like, the things that these two have gotten into, I'm like, what in
Yeah.
the world? So now Jake don't know that I know his best friend Gio. So now I got Jake. It was on a Saturday morning. I said, come on, Jake. You know what I'm saying? He goes, what? I said, I'm gonna take you on a play date. He goes, okay. So now I'm driving over to Gio's house, right? We get there. He goes, who lives here? I go, some friends of mine. I think that you're gonna like them. And sure enough, Gio opens up the door, and them two just grab each other. Jake, Gio, and next thing you know, they done ran off, and now they're into God knows what. I'm just like, and I'm looking at his mom. I'm going, yep. She goes, we're definitely family now. You know that, right? I said, yep. And it was like that ever since then. Now the morning of his overdose, so we did the same thing. Regular routine, regular Saturday,
Yeah.
go over to Gio's house. His brother used to wrestle, play football. His brother had a football game. So they was like, hey, meet us over at the field, right? So, all right. So we're going back to the house, picking up some groceries. You know what I'm saying? On the way to the house, we see your mom over at the hardware store. We stop over there and everything because he was like, there's mom. I was like, all right. So we stop. We talked for a bit, head on to the house. Before we leave the house, Jake is like, hey, don't forget to give me my medicine. I said, okay,
Mm.
not a problem. And I gave it to him. He was like, that don't taste good. They don't taste good. I was like, okay, here's some water, wash it down. I never put two and two together.
Yeah.
Never even thought about it. Right. So now we're going to the field. We get out the car. Jake walked around the vehicle, and I heard him say, "Dad, I can't move." And he falls out. So now I turn back around. I grab him. I said, "Bubba, you okay?" And I pick him up. He goes, "No, I'm not okay." Turn back around, get him in the truck. We go back to the house. I take him. Now I'm holding him. I'm taking him to his room. I laid him down in the bed. I called your mom. I said, "Look, something's not right." I said, "After I give Jake his medication, this is what happens." She goes, "Well, grab the bottle, go over to Good Day." And, oh yeah, I'm throwing him under the bus too, because no one took responsibility for what the hell they did.
Yeah, I mean, I'll no matter. I mean that. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of things that the story that I've heard with that is, but no matter what it is, I mean, he was overdosed, and
his
that
mixed his medication wrong,
and that
wrong.
Which how you do 1,000 times of something is absurd, and there's layers of illegality of things that happen there. It was just atrocious.
Yeah, well, and that's what happened, right? So because I gave Jake. I never gave Jake the full amount because I didn't like the way that it would put him down, because it just took everything out of him. He would just go lay down. Didn't want to do anything. He'd just go to sleep. So I said, okay, at least if I can give him a little bit of it, a little small amount, he can still go out and be a kid, right? And that's all. I hated putting him on medication, but do CPS, we were ordered to do it, and your mom was like, "No, we have to do it." I was like, no. And I was correct. I was right. So now Jake's going through this. I go back over to Good Day. I said, look, what I'm saying? I give him this. He passes out. What is going on? They go check their logs. They go, well, everything was mixed correctly. This is Halloween. This is Friday. This is a Saturday night. Saturday when this happened. You know what I'm saying? And so now I take Jake back to the house. I'm laying in the bed with him. You know what I'm saying? He's starting to go through it, right? So now I'm calling your mom. Your mom says, I'm on my way. She gets over there. She goes, we need to take him to the emergency room right now. Yeah. Without a doubt. Grab him. We jump in the car. We take off, go to the emergency room. She's, you know what I'm saying? She's calling down there. I'm driving her car, and we're speeding. We're going down to MCR. Mm-hmm. She's like, possible overdose. So by the time we hit the door, they're already coming out, you know what I'm saying? And now, you know what I'm saying? They were like, what's going on? We got the bottle. No one's paying attention. No one's paying attention that we have the bottle in our hand. This is Halloween. Do we have the bottle in our hand? And we go up to the room, you know what I'm saying? And then from there, they said, we need to get you to a better facility that's more equipped to deal with this. Yep. So now we get transferred out to PVH. Jake goes through a grand mal seizure. They said, we're not equipped to deal with this. We're going to have to airlift it down to Children's Hospital. Yeah. So now that's the first time we get airlifted down to Children's Hospital. We get there, and for the next 2 days, these people did nothing, absolutely nothing to treat him. They treated him for everything else except for what he had in the system. Oh, it has to be this. It has to be. They gave him every antidote to every other overdose symptom except for the one that we kept trying to tell him. And it wasn't until when the doctor came in Monday, saw it, and was like, oh, that's a typical clonidine overdose. So for 2 days, the videos that you've seen on YouTube, those were those videos that come from. Mm-hmm. That's us in the room. Yeah. That's what's going on. And imagine being there in person and seeing this and trying to do something. Now, here's the thing. Every time your mom would get near Jake, Jake would flip out. But every time I was around him, he calmed down. So I just laid in bed with him the whole time. I was like, it's going to be okay. I'm not going anywhere. Yeah. Broke my heart. Then the doctors come on a Sunday night. They said, hey, he's not going to make it. I'm looking at him and say, what do you mean? He's not going to make it. We think that he has a real brain disease. There's something that's eating away the sheet on on his nerves, on his brain. So now I'm thinking to myself, like, no, you're not going to sit there and tell me that and walk away. I'm about to destroy this whole floor, this hospital. You have no idea about what I'm about to do.
Mm-hmm.
So now we go back in the room. I am fuming from one end to the next. I am ready to destroy everything. If my boy do not wake up, I am destroying this place.
Mm-hmm.
Monday morning, he wakes up. He wakes up, right? After being in the hospital. So he pulled himself out. He pulled himself out of there. And now he's in the archives over at Children's Hospital because there was no way that he was supposed to come out of it. But he did. He came out of it. So now we take him home. No more medication. No more medication. And I'm going to tell you the audacity of your mother. Shortly after that happened, 7 days before Jake's birthday, I had to go get him because your mother was beating him. 7 days before Christmas, I had to go get him because your mother was beating him. So then I kept him up until February, and that's when your mom decided to come back around. Out of that whole time, it was like, can I see him? I was like, hold on. No, remember, we had the agreement. You stay away from us. So I told her, I said, I told Jake, I said, what do you want to do? This is how forgiving your brother is. He said, that is my mother and I love her.
Mm-hmm.
I said, are you going to be okay? Do you want to see it? Yes, Daddy, I do. I said, okay. So I let him go. I let him go. And I didn't think nothing else of it. Up until June, when he got sick. He was with me, right? And that Saturday, he was over at his friend's house swimming, everything else. Now, you got to mind you, 9 months, he is having the time of his life. Mm-hmm. He just graduated out of school. He's in hip-hop class. He is, you know what I'm saying? He is enjoying life like nobody's business. He got himself a scooter now, got himself a bike too. You know what I'm saying? He loved that stuff, man. Yeah. And when he got sick, I thought maybe he had a stomach flu. Didn't think nothing else of it. You know, we woke up on a Sunday. When we woke up Sunday, normally I cook breakfast. We go to church. He loved going to church because he loved going in there playing with the other kids and stuff, right? And I never pushed religion on him. He was just like, I love going because the kids there, you know? I was like, okay. Yeah. So we went. No, we didn't go to church. I said, you want to go to church? He was like, no, Daddy, I don't feel good. Couldn't keep nothing down his stomach or anything like that. That night, your mom comes and gets him. Monday, she keeps him home from school. Tuesday morning, she goes, I need to take him to the family doctor. She takes him, then she calls me because at that time I was driving a trash truck. She calls me and say, hey, they're admitting us to the emergency room. I said, not a problem. I'm on my way. I called my job. I said, I'm bringing the truck back. I got to go. My son is in the hospital. I'll talk to you. They was like, all right. So I get back there, get my car, I drive down. Deja vu. Now we in TBH yet again. Your mother starts a scene, a huge scene. After I leave to go home to go grab clothes. So, you know what I'm saying? Because we was going to be in the hospital until he came home. Right?
Yeah, and you're driving a trash truck all day.
Yeah, and I've been driving a trash truck all day, right? You know? But I didn't even get to change clothes. That was the sad part about it. I get called from the hospital saying, hey, Miss Steinbrecher is in here flipping out. I get there, there's police outside the door. The door is closed. There's police outside the door. I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
So I go in there. Jake looks at me. He goes, she scared me. And I'm looking at her. I go, what did you do? Well, I was like, no. I was like, look, you need to come at this with a rational mind. They're trying to help us. Mm-hmm. And you know what I'm saying? You're sitting up here making it about you. Do you not see our son over there going through it and you making it about you? I said, look, if you can't handle it, you let me handle it. I'll get us into a good facility. I said, I'm not dealing with it no more. I'm done. So she finally calms down. we find the new hospital, Rocky Mountain Children's. The same people who airlifted us down the first time to Children's Hospital was the same people who airlifted us down to Rocky Mountain Children's. And we get there. They give Jake some morphine on the way down. So I'm filling the gaps that you didn't know, right? They give morphine on the way down. We're on a helicopter. Jake is passed out. But he's doing good. We get there. They take him off. They come to us. Doctors was phenomenal. They asked, "What do you want us to do?" I said, I don't want you to use my son as a guinea pig. I want you to find out what's going on with him so we can take him home. Doctor said, yeah. They run tests. They can't even get blood out of him because his blood is coagulating. And no one knows why. No one knows why. Right? So they finally get a little bit. They run a test. They cannot figure out what's going on with them. They don't know why it's happening. They don't know if it's viral or bacterial. Doctor said, what I would like to do is give him a super antibiotic. And then we're going to do a blood transfusion. We're going to clean his blood out, right? And then put the blood back in him. He should be fine. He'd be just fine in the morning. And so they gave him the antibiotic. He was doing good. He comes out, he goes, we're about to start the transfusion. Doctor was great. And not even 30 seconds into the transfusion, a cold blue has been sanctioned out of the room. So now we're watching nurses come from every floor, flood into this room. They're handing, you know what I'm saying? They're handing bags back. They're doing this, that, and the other, right? And, and then you hear those words. That doctor said, anyone that don't need to be in this room, please leave now. And someone get the parents. We're losing them. And I walked in. As Jake took his last breath. I had to stop the dude from doing CPR on him. And I just remember grabbing him. The guy looked at me. I said, he's gone. And that was the first time that, I had to admit that Jake was gone, but I didn't want to believe it. So I sat in bed with him for an hour and a half or a couple hours, hoping that he would wake up because I was in disbelief. And your mom walks in. She goes, I don't know why you're laying there. There's nothing else there. And she walks out. I just laying there with her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she is a viciously unspiritual woman. I mean, she tried to beat the shit out of me in front of a therapist when I asked her to go to church with me when I was like 12, when I was in foster care.
Yeah.
Because she said, do you think I need Jesus to fix all my problems? So
maybe, but
yeah, my side of the story was so disconnected. The time Jake overdosed, I was in the state facility.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason that I took it so hard was I was so self-absorbed during all of this. I had felt like, you know what I mean? Because just it was Halloween. My friend's birthday was a couple days before Halloween. And then it was going in, and I found out about the overdose after Jake had gotten out of the facility, after he had come out of it.
Right.
They kept me really isolated from the information because I was so suicidal that they didn't want to give me information for some reason. So Jake overdosed, and they were like, so Jake, this happened, but he's fine. I went, okay. When did this happen? They're like, oh, this happened. You said what, it was Thursday? I didn't find out till like the next.
No, it was on a Saturday.
Saturday. I didn't find out till like Thursday, I think, or Wednesday or Thursday.
Oh, wow.
Thursday. Like I didn't find out till like a while, like until he was literally out of the hospital.
Yeah, because he got out Monday. It happened Saturday, Halloween. He was out Monday.
Yeah, I didn't find out till like Wednesday or Thursday. Like I didn't find out till days later. And my sister came in with my therapist, and like, this happened, but he's fine. Okay, cool. Went back to being self-absorbed, hating life, hating myself, not wanting to be around, thinking I was the problem with everything. Wasn't. And holidays happened. Jake's birthday happened. I remember getting him How to Train Your Dragon gifts. I got him like a hat and a toy, and I remember getting that it was like a joint birthday. I went out with my older sibling and got it with her. Went through and I think around January they were like, yeah, you can leave. But and this was the dramatic situation I was in, was my dad was homeless, and my mom wouldn't let me live with my sister, who had an apartment and a room for me, because she thought that my sister was going to manipulate me to not want a relationship with my mother. So they wouldn't let me live with my sister, and so they were trying to find a group home for me. The problem is that I'm a type 1 diabetic, which comes with a lot of liability, especially if you're trying to kill yourself with your insulin.
Right.
So they had to find a place with nursing to administer my insulin, and that's kind of hard to do with group homes, because most of the time it's just a staff trained to be like, here's your pill. You know what I mean? Right, not administer a really deadly medication if used wrong. Talk about 1,000 times something. You know what I mean? Insulin is in like such a small dosage. You know what I mean? That it really is like a really potent thing. So that's what was wild about it, was like something like clonidine, which is, he was on a 0.03 0.03. That's the equivalent of like, if it was insulin, talking about like a unit of insulin versus like a 1,000 units in insulin, but like a 1 unit of insulin is like so small. You know what I mean? So, anyways, so finding me a group home, they started getting me there to get to that point, and to touring places. And again, this whole time, I really couldn't contact Jake. You know what I mean? Like, my conversations I had with my mother were supervised towards the end, like the second, like towards like that January point forward. I was talking to her on the phone with my therapist in the room, but my therapist would have to have another therapist in the room when she would talk to her, because she would get the therapist so dysregulated, right? Like, she would have the head of psychiatry in the room to observe the conversation between the therapist and my mom. Right? Because really, this is the therapist that said she was crazy like Trump. So anyways, and so they and then this is June. I'm getting through my school year there or whatever, and they had like summer schooling, and it's the same thing with what was going on with Jake. I had no idea until it was over, because I remember I was sitting in class on Thursday, I think it was. Again, it was like another Thursday for some reason when I found the information, because he died on a Wednesday. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Wednesday morning.
Yeah, like really early.
Yeah.
Or something, right? And so
like 2 o'clock, 2:30, somewhere around there in the morning when he passed.
Yeah, it was really early. So what had happened is when Jake died, my mother, being the emotionless woman she was, very calmly like called my sister in the middle of the night. And my sister is not one to answer the phone for this woman, but like was like, what the fuck is going on? Answered the phone, was like, Jake's dead. And so then my sister had to be like, had to then compose herself. It was a very different thing for my sister grieving, because my sister's 20 years older than Jake and never lived in the same house as him, right? Never was. And that's not fault of 20 years, right? Like, was joining the military when he was born.
Right.
And so her relationship with him is very much through me, and like, and kind of, which is a little bit different. And she raised me, so that's kind of a weird thing. And so what ended up happening was she came in, I was sitting in class, they were like, "Hey, your sister's here." And I was like, "Do I have family therapy? Like, did I forget? Like, this is not family therapy day." Like, weird. And I go in, I think a staff walked me in, and my therapist is sitting there with tears in her eyes, which is weird because this woman is very not the person to cry.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister, and it's like, this is, like doom on their faces. And it sits down, and my sister starts to try to explain what was happening, like got sick. Right. And I'm sitting there like, cool, another weird, like, gonna be fine. Like last time, didn't know till it was over, was fine, didn't think anything of it. Right. It was like the overdose. Like there's a that happened, it's over now. There's a reason for it. It happened, it's gone, right? Now and then I'm being told, and then it's like, and my therapist was like, it kind of was like my sister was having a hard time. It was just like, yeah, he passed away, or whatever they said. I think I can't even remember the words that they said, right? Because once you like realize that they're saying it, it's kind of was taken over with like the fact that that's what was going on. And I said it earlier, I was in this locked facility, but I was able to leave on pass or go on overnights or whatever, if I was safe enough.
Right.
And I was, and I had been. And I had been for a while. I'd been really safe for a really long time. And I was just being held there because they couldn't find a place for me to go. No one could take me, and the person that could wasn't allowed to. So and I looked at them and I was like, they're like, "What do you need?" And I was like, "I want to go out of here, like anywhere, to a restaurant, to something. I don't want to be stuck in here with the fact that this happened." And they were like, "No, you were not," which makes sense, I guess. Maybe, but like I was just like, I don't want to be here. Can I go on a walk? Can I go anywhere? And they wouldn't let me leave. Granted, you find out people die, you might want to
Right.
die yourself, right? But at that point, I looked at them and I was like, "Do you really think I'm just gonna kill myself because of this?" Like, he wouldn't want that, right? But then over the next 2 weeks, they really also wouldn't allow me to leave. I was put on like, makes sense now ahead of time, but they were like, "We're gonna give you this thing called a 1-to-1 where they're gonna watch you at all points in time." Um, One person is set just to watch you, because they're so afraid of me being unsafe, right? I had this really long reputation. I was really unpredictable. I was really, really sneaky. Um, and for like 2 weeks, they had this on there, and I convinced them. I was like, "I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine." They finally took me off of it, started letting me go out. Um, a part of my disorder that I have, which you know what influences what is hard to say, but I'm formally diagnosed with something called schizoaffective disorder, which incorporates symptoms of schizophrenia with psychosis and things, paranoia, getting mixed with mood disorders like depression and mania. At the time, I was really just going through massive depressive episodes and psychosis, and had been medicated. But once I got through that initial like, is this happening? Like, or did this happen, or is this real? Or I hadn't contacted Jake in so long too that it also just felt like it wasn't like I talked to him before and I couldn't talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
It'd been a little bit, and the communication I had was about, and so it really didn't feel any different for a while, and then it hit me, and then you know the beliefs I had about myself are so influenced by my abuse at the time that I just really believe like I was the fault this happened, in the sense that I left him there and something bad happened to him and I couldn't, I right there were, and that's irrational, um in a sense, right? And
No,
so
actually, it's
right,
totally normal.
it's totally normal, to the degree
Yeah.
I was having it. And again, with me being incredibly sneaky, I ended up, it was again like the first couple days of July. I tried to take my life in the hospital, which is a kind of a hard feat to do, but I got close and I caused a code blue. They were able to reverse what I was doing to myself. And I was really, really lucky. Um, and then for like a while afterwards, I was on, it was every day just trying to, right, over and over again in less severe ways until put me on some more medication, did a lot of therapy, and decided like, I was going into my senior year of high school and I was like, okay, I just want to get out of this hospital. And, but the thing is that from the point Jake died, my grieving process was so isolated because my sibling didn't have a big connection to Jake. Not as emotionally. It was more like of a, like, she really felt bad about the situation he was in and how terrible his life, like his whole life of going through like the system and the abuse. And it was just, at least for me and her, we have a period where we weren't in it. You know what I mean? In a sense, right? Like I was at least a teenager, not living in that anymore. Now I'm an adult, not living that anymore. She had been an adult, and it was really just like the tragedy that was this boy's life in a sense due to my mom. And for me, it was this emotional guilt of like the layers of going through the abuse and then going into from the fire into the frying pan, going into more abuse in the foster home, and then not protecting him from that because the only person that in my mind that could have was me, right? Because right. And then also having it be by myself because I don't know what their thought process was, but I couldn't even like Skype or whatever it was at 2016. I don't think Zoom was around. Videotape the service,
Right.
Or something, right? And so I never had that like memorial or that grieving thing, and my family aren't religious, spiritual people, pretty much.
Right.
So the idea of a funeral or praying or thinking of them watching over you, or to all of these people kind of in my family, that's a coping mechanism. Energy doesn't exist after you die. You live, you die. It's a black nothingness. You have one life, whatever it is. A lot of these people that I was around felt like religion for them was a thing people did to cope with reality. Which is valid, I guess, some ways.
Perception. Perception. I tell people this, right? Like I always tell people, I'm not a religious person.
No.
I don't care nothing about religious. I believe what I believe. But I believe in things that make me a good person. Now, and I believe the same thing for other people. If what you believe in or what you don't believe in, it doesn't bother me. But whatever it is, if it makes you a good human being, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Right? Who am I to tell you that you're right or wrong?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's my point.
I'm nobody. But if it makes you a good human being, I'm all for it. Now, if it makes you a shitty human being, shitty person,
yeah,
I say you need to figure out something different. Figure out something different because the world is full of shitty people. We don't need one more. Figure out something different. Figure out something that's going to work for you to make you a good person in this world, right? So I'm always for that. That's why when it comes down to Muslim, atheist, I don't care. I really just don't care.
Yeah, right? It was interesting though with this whole grieving process though because there was no like. It was very hard because like for me, I don't necessarily believe in someone watching over me or any of these things, but I think for a lot of people I was around, including my mother, it's like it might as well almost like they never existed. You know what I mean? It's just, and so it was, and then I thought of Jake, and Jake's death for my mother gave her power. It gave her something to say, look what happened to me, but I'm still a good person after that or something.
Right.
Or I didn't
Right.
go back to alcohol, so I'm good. And or I was a good mother to him or something after you got out of when you got moved away. You just didn't see it. Or I'm better now. Look, and so I went out after this whole experience of really hating myself and not knowing why, grieving Jake, and looking at my mother and trying to have a relationship with her. You know, I'm like maybe it was something I didn't understand as a kid. Maybe it was just alcohol diluting her brain to make her
Mhm.
abusive. Maybe maybe she's traumatized and I really just don't understand. Whatever it is. Um and then and this is where it comes back around for me, is the Jake's grief for me didn't end after I was 16 and went on and got through high school or whatever, and stopped trying to kill myself over it or whatever was going on. Um, I went through that, and it was, and talked about him all the time, and I have you can't see it because it's plastered to the wall, but like made like a woodshop project with his name, and like really was just doing whatever I could to remember him and like memorialize him. And especially since my memory was so kind of far from what I could remember him from what he was, right? Because the last
Mhm.
picture I have with him, the last day I saw him was at your house. When I was 14, when I visited,
Yeah,
and
when you guys, when you and your sister came down and took him down to go build a bear.
yeah, and I
And
have the bear, in my living room. You
oh,
know what
you
I
had
mean?
the bear.
Yeah, I
So
have the bear. I
I
have the bear.
remember
I have the bear.
when that happened. Uh, your sister said that boy has expensive taste.
Yeah. Well, and so I
I'm
have the
really
bear.
excited.
It sits in my living room in my little memorial or whatever that I have for
Okay.
him. Um, but I went and I graduated high school. I started college, and there was this real discourse between me wanting a relationship trying to have a relationship with my mother, trying to understand, and this like whole thing with her that she's like, "Look, I'm not a terrible person. I'm better now. I'm not using drugs that makes me good." And Jake's death, whatever. I'm like, whatever's going on. So I really tried, and then as I started experiencing her as an adult and sober, I realized she was still crazy. She was still manipulative. She was still a narcissist. And as I said before, I'm diagnosed with a disorder that can be really severe
Right.
if untreated. And I was on a medication that uh, is kind of an older medication, but it's kind of like a classic. It's called Haldol. Not great. Wouldn't be on it again. But at the time, it's what I needed, and it was what was working. And I was without it was in a way, way bad situation. And she manipulated me. She came. She paid for a surgery that I had to transition, and kind of convinced me during this time while she was like nursing me back to health or whatever to go off this medication, and convinced me to try this Chinese herbs. Not what I should be doing. And so over the next 6 months, I had like this first like really long manic episode where I dropped out of school and I was doing really unsafe things, and um but realized during that, um after some things that happened, that I was like, oh my god, she's the problem. And I ended up hospitalized at 19, what they called a full psychotic break,
Mhm.
fueled on the fact that this woman caused his death in whatever manner, in my eyes, whether it be that he was on a medication, the clonidine, due to the fact that he was having violent outbursts, due to the fact he was abused, or maybe if it was the abuse that was in foster care. Why are we in foster care? Because we're being abused. Whatever it was. And my paranoia, and this is what, saying this now, in 2023, 4 years later, on a podcast, right, is that there's a strong belief that whatever happened is her fault. And I felt like that she was going to come back into my life and try to say, he's psychotic, I need custody of him as an adult.
Yeah.
And thankfully, as an adult, I still have rights, no matter what the doctors think of me. And but once I was medicated and put on good medication and have been extremely happy and productive and gone back to college and had a career, I still look back and see all this damage being done. And I stopped trying to, how do I word this? Make her downfall my success, but just try to make my successes my success and move on.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But because of all of that, I had to learn how to like grieve this issue, right? Because it's like, you know, if you look at a death certificate, it's unknown. What happened? Who did it? What caused it? I don't know. My brother's
Yeah.
dead. And I never really got to say goodbye. And I'm not really around people who knew him, right? So like talking to Tony to you today is really weird because the only person that I can really talk to right now that has a memory of Jake really at all, a fore memory of his personality, who he was, other than a couple hour long interactions over a couple of years, is you. And I'm probably the only person that can almost probably say the same, right? Who knew him so deeply.
Right.
Which is like the wild thing because up until, it's kind of a weird thing when you go through this whole process and you're like, do I reach out to my dead little brother's dad, who also might not want anything to do with me because my mother is the devil's mother herself? Like, I don't know what she is. She's like she's something ethereal.
Oh,
That like an ethereal evil that how do you go about that? But connecting with this is really interesting because it's like it comes full circle, right?
yes.
When you go through, I'll say it to you if you don't feel like it is already. Tony, you were abused by my mother.
Oh yeah.
When you go through being abused by a narcissist, there is this huge amount of closure to talk to somebody else and go, oh my God, I'm not crazy. That actually happened. You
Yeah.
believe that too? You
Yeah.
saw that, right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
not, you know,
Like
and
when I
so,
when I tell people, no one really believes me, right? They're like, "Oh, she can't be." I was like, "Dude, you have to understand." Like, okay, so I have a handful of friends that are still around from when, you know what I'm saying, from the beginning where, you know what I'm saying, your mom took Jake away from me, the things that she's done. I got one friend who's still around, who's still alive, that witnessed everything that was going on.
Mhm.
And he was like, "Holy crap, Tony. You really aren't not kidding. She is really just that crazy." I said, "I told you.
Yeah.
I wasn't making this up. I know what it sounds like when I say it, but
Mhm.
I'm not making it up." And then she started showing it. And I was like, "I told you. I told you." Right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
It just
I'm not
makes me.
afraid to admit that I got into a narcissistic abusive relationship. I did not understand it. And so therefore, you know what I'm saying, getting to a situation that I never understood and getting my ass handed to me the way that I did. You know what I'm saying? Let's be honest. That woman handed me my ass left and right and then some. Right? She stripped me of everything that I thought that I was. And I
Oh,
had to rebuild myself from there. So did you. So did everyone else that had come in
yeah.
contact with the
Well,
woman.
yeah, there's something
Right?
special about
Yeah.
literally,
Oh,
being 19 and like being in a situation where people go, you're so unstable that we are legally allowed to lock you up and not let you leave.
right.
And then, is a lot. And um looking back on it, it's just like the layers of ways that I've seen it affect people. My partner really loves to, well, doesn't love to, but sometimes will like bring her up to his family sometimes, and it's just like he tells them, he's like, yeah, this is kind of what it is, and they look at me like that I'm horrified, like I'm like it's a true crime novel, like I'm
Right.
telling,
Right.
you know, um like disbelief. And so, and going back to it, you talk about Jake, right? And you
Mhm.
have this organization. And in a way, though, me talking about Jake Steinbrecher, you talking about Jake Steinbrecher, you go online, um, she's the credit. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we're the
And
ones
that's
that
the best
have
part.
built, and we're the ones that have like extended his memory and changed lives because of it, and
Right.
used,
And look,
and I'm not trying to be like high and mighty about it, but
no, I
it's
understand
something that
what you're saying.
I had to
Right.
take this, and I'm not selfish about it. I'm not, most of the time when I'm working with clients, actually pretty much all of the time, especially now that I've moved out of peer mentoring, people don't know that I'm sitting here because of this. They just think I'm a good social worker or whatever, and that I kind of get it for some reason.
Mhm.
Um and or whatever. And it's not about me, you know what I mean? It's the
Mhm.
fact that I can now
Sure.
look back and go, I really hope I can help people not go through that again. You know what
Exactly.
I mean?
Exactly.
Um, I'm not. I mean, I'm making money off of this in the sense that I get a paycheck that pays my bills enough, like any other worker in the United States.
Mhm.
Um, but this is, for me, my career and what I do, talking about Jake ever, mostly is really just kind of a gift that I get to be able to use what I learned from him to hope that I can help kids or parents or anybody, even people my age who might be going through their own loss or their own abusive relationship or whatever it is, show a sign or have someone to reach out to, or um even, I look back on it and I work with kids in the system now. It's like I don't even need to be that person going, you know, noticing that. It's maybe I'm just that safe place where that kid goes to go do a sport for a bit and escapes it. And
Yeah.
I look back on it and it really is just like, who did I need when I was younger? But really, like,
Mm.
there was just a sense of just like, you know, I don't think of Jake like looking down on me like in heaven, but it's like, would I make him proud? And I don't think I would be making him proud, um, making money like a like publicity. I think
Yeah.
changing
Yeah.
people's lives one on one and not even mentioning his name or the story or any of those things, right? It's just that I'm here helping people or trying to, whatever you can do.
Yeah.
But I'm also not. I'm also. This is honestly is a little more out character for me having this conversation with you, Tony. Is talking this like bluntly about my mom. I'm not one to even throw her under the bus. And I mean, I do, personally, but it's when I'm talking to my friends.
Right.
But she's not me. Like I'm me, and I've created my life. She actually was probably the opposite, trying to destroy my life. The only thing she is to me is like this, like, look what I got over. You know what I mean? And so it really is just the top of it is just that, like, I get to stand here today and be so fortunate that I'm alive and that I lived through it and that I can connect to people like you or look back on it. Um, Let me tell you, Taylor Swift get some karma going on. Whatever it is, like, uh, I don't know. I don't know where she is. I don't know what she's doing. I don't want to know. Um, but I hope that, and it's so cool that we can sit here and talk to about Jake and this experience is people who went through that, and I don't know, like kind of show the other, the other side of this
Yeah.
story, and
Yeah.
connect, because I share my story with people, you share yours. But I think it's like we're forever going to be connected, and
Oh yeah.
there's just like not a lot of ways to connect to this whole web together than this conversation, because um like, I had one side of it and you had another, and there's a million other sides to whoever was hurt in the process. But um I'm just glad to be able to have a conversation with someone who can remember Jake. um I don't know how much a lot of people can really remember him.
You'd be
And
surprised.
well,
Right?
in a sense that, like, if I
Yeah,
was
man.
talking to my mother, she remembers how good of a mother
No, no,
she
not
was,
even
right?
with your mother, right? You
But
know what I'm
like,
saying? So Jake had a little girlfriend when he was over at BF Kitchen. Um, Beautiful young girl, and they always just hung out together. And I remember one day I went to go ready to go pick Jake up from school, and the parents pulled me off to the side. They were like, "Are you Jake's dad?" I said, "Yes, I am." They was like, "Can we talk to you for a minute?" Oh man, what did he
uh,
do now? Right? They were like, "No, no, no, no." They were like, "Well, you know, that's our daughter right there." And we just wanted to introduce ourselves to our future family, because your son and our daughter, oh, them two right there, they're meant to be together, right? You know what I'm saying? Now,
yeah.
this is when
Yeah, Jake's like in second grade, maybe like first,
yeah,
second.
when they were small, right? So fast forward a few years, after Jake passes away, I'm doing personal training. I just started my company, doing pretty good before I left South Dakota. One of my clients that I was training, she goes, "Hey, I hope you don't mind, but I kind of ran across someone that you know, and I was telling them that you are training me, and they wanted to come and say hi to you." And I turned around. Now the little girl she's a little bit taller,
Mm,
still beautiful, beautiful. And she walks up to me with tears in her eyes after all of these many years.
yeah.
And she grabs me. She goes, "I still miss him
Yeah.
every day." Now you gotta mind you know what I'm saying? When they met each other, they were 4 or 5 years old,
Yeah.
right? And they were going through school together,
Yeah.
and which was crazy.
Yeah.
Just being kids. And now she's, you know, uh, uh 13, 14 years old, and she still remembers him. And her family is just like, they walked over to me. It's like, we still have no words about what had happened. We
Yeah.
wish that we could have did something for you. And I said, you know what? This is enough just to know that
Yeah.
that your daughter still remembers him
Hmm.
is enough for me. And it's okay if she lets him go, you know. And they go, "Oh no, she's definitely not letting him go." So it's, what I'm saying. And even when at Jake's tribute, this kid had 120 some people show up to his tribute. I didn't even know he knew that many people. You
Yeah.
know, he had
Oh,
120 some people show up to his tribute, and I'm going like this. I don't even know this many people. Are you out of your mind? So no, it's
yeah.
look, and his best friend, one of his best friends when he was in school, is still in hip hop class. They still do once a year. They do a dance, and at the end of the stage, they put a rose with a green ribbon on it in memory of Jake.
I didn't know that.
And they've been doing this.
Yeah.
They have been doing this for the past 7 years.
Yeah.
They still put the flower down there, and every last one of the kids come up and drop a rose with that green ribbon up there. And the dance teacher always wears his little ribbon around his wrist.
Yeah.
And they do it, they perform a dance for him before they get into their routine. I still get those ribbons
Yeah.
that are signed by all of those kids. I still get those in the mail saying, hey, this is for Jake.
Yeah.
Just so you know, we did not forget him. And he still sent it to me.
Yeah.
There's so many people that seen me and Jake out fishing, going to the stores, and I still see them to this day. They still, whenever I walk in the store, they still go, hey man, I still remember when you brought him in here and he got that little bag. They still share these stories with me. Their kids. Hey, I remember when I was going through a bad time and Jake came over and he sat down with me and gave me a hug and told me everything was going to be okay. And I knew that when he said that, I knew everything was going to be okay. So there's a lot of people that have been impacted just by being a part of that kid's life that I never knew nothing about.
Yeah.
And to me, that's inspiration to be better, right? To be a better. Because if he can do that at the age of 8.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. I was like, how did this man teach me how to be a better man than like adults? Like, I don't even know.
And that's what I mean. If he can do that at the age of 8 to teach all of these and impact all of these individuals, but yet to take this broken shell of a man to fill me with so much love and joy, just to be a part of that kid's life. He taught me how to climb trees again. He taught me how to let my soul be a child and see the life through eyes of a child, and to have fun, to smell the roses, to not be afraid to, you know what I'm saying, get your knees dirty, and don't be afraid to go out and jump in the water puddles. Let's go build a snowman. Hell, let's have a snowball fight. You know what I'm saying? It's okay to play tag with your friends. And it's also okay when you're fishing to go and jump in the lake just because you're hot. These are the things that he left me, right? And so when you see the things that I put out like that, it's because he left these things for me to do that. And I work as if I'm still trying to make him proud of his dad, right? Because there's times where I don't feel like I'm doing enough, right? I'm connecting with other men like myself because I know what it was like to go through something so horrible, and not to have anybody there, and having to heal and take those steps to be where I am today, and I can no longer walk away from the next man going through the same things because I know what it's like to lose everything. I know what it's like to lose myself and almost take my own life. I know what it's like to not have anybody. I do.
Yeah.
And Jake reminds me, just through his life, he reminded me that I can be somebody for somebody. And I think that's where we take our stories and we turn it around and we become that version of ourselves that we needed, right? For other people.
Oh, I have my insulin pump's going off.
Uh-oh.
Oh no, you're fine. It's oops, sorry guys. No, it's just there we go. We'll turn off now. Give it 1 second. I apologize.
No, don't apologize. Look,
no, we've been gotta be alive, right?
Yeah, alive,
no, we're fine. But
and now look at us, right? We've reconnected, which was the best feeling in the world, knowing that you was okay. To be able to talk to you and your sister has been truly, truly amazing. Yeah. And now you're getting married. Right? You know what I'm saying?
Getting married soon, yeah.
Like I am, and I will say this, and I will always say this to you. I am proud of the young man that you have become. I am proud that you managed, that you got yourself, you found you throughout all of this craziness. See, the craziness is part of the stories that make us who we are. That's why we share our stories, because we become someone else's survival guide, right? You know what I'm saying? We give them hope and inspiration, but in turn, when there's people out there that go through worse, they give us hope and inspiration, right? Because it's not it's not the things that you do for people. It's about how you make people feel when they come into your presence. People always remember that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now I made a vow in my commitment to this thing to never leave someone worse off than what I found them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know what it's like to walk in the dark alone.
Yeah.
I
I
do.
mean,
I know what it's like to have my ass handed to me on so many levels that, that I never thought I was going to come back. Now look at us, right?
for
Look at
sure. I
this
mean, you're
beautiful
speaking my
conversation
language.
that we're having, right? You know what I'm saying? I mean, we're both sitting up here trying to hold back the tears.
This is
we both
sobbing like
sit
a
up,
baby. No,
yeah,
you're speaking my language. I think Jake taught me like honesty and forgiveness and
yes,
how to, you know, stand up for
how,
somebody and how to
how to love
how to love
unconditional.
how to love somebody, how to make someone feel better. You
Yeah,
know, there was memories I had of really
yeah,
bad things happening in my house and Jake sneaking into my room afterwards and going, "You okay?" As a toddler, there was things and I think I sit here and you talk about making sure men don't walk in the dark. Um, for me, it was kids for these kids that didn't have an adult
right.
to be there for them, or to find them the right resources, or to not put them back in those environments, or to listen to them, or there was, or I don't understand. Obviously, I have my life, which has a lot of intersectionality. It has a lot of things, but a lot of it, I will never understand what some people go through because that's not my life. But it's the understanding that I'm not gonna leave them there, or I'll listen to them talk about whatever they want to talk about, good, bad, ugly, up and down. There's nothing worse than being left in it, or being told that what you're experiencing is not what you're experiencing, or to you know and I think too, like, working with kids, I've ended up working with parents, and I work with kids in the system, and you know I have also through this found my ability to forgive some of these parents that have put these kids through situations, right? Because no matter how the things people do, I think there's things that have happened that put them in that situation, and
Yeah,
some are worse than others. But
yeah.
the biggest thing I learned from Jake is like forgiveness in a sense, because
There you go.
I couldn't I can't live a life of just being so angry, because angry wants me to have vengeance, and I can't live a life of trying to have vengeance.
Right.
It was a sense that I had to
That's
leave it in the
healthy.
past and move on, and really use this to help people. I couldn't and
Yeah.
do what I could, and that's what made me feel good. And you know, I go back, and every year on the day Jake died, I I do adventure education. I do a lot of hiking and stuff, and no matter the weather, it's not always great on January 8th, or not January 8th, June 8th.
Yeah.
Um, but I try to do something and to memorialize him, right? And that's just myself, right? I'll do a hike, and I always chew orange gum, which I hate. I freaking hate it. It's so nasty. I chew the Trident like tropical orange gum and eat powdered donuts, the Hostess brand that like come in the package.
Yes.
Which I also really don't like. That was not what my, but it was two things that when I thought about it, I would ask my mom, I'd go, hey, can I go to the corner store? Where we live, there was a gas station on the corner, and they knew Jake.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And sometimes they would they'd be like, oh, you can't pay for it, you're fine. But I would go in and I'd buy a bag of flaming hot Cheetos because that's what I wanted every time. And I'd buy Jake either the gum or the donuts. And it really is just it's something, I think there's ways I've taken this, in a grander sense, right? You go and you help other people and I have a career on this of my trauma, but I think a big part of this whole conversation is just like I still heard about this, I'm sitting here crying, right? And it's, every, on his birthday, I have a picture floating around of me holding him the day he was born, wearing a shirt that said "Best Big Sister" or something on it.
I have that.
I have
that picture,
right? And that day, and or I think about the birthdays I had with him, or the day he died, or the birthdays like he celebrated on my birthday, right? Like he, you know what I mean? Whatever it was, and I still have to have that moment of like allowing myself to like not be over it. You know what I mean? Because I think there's a part of this career where people are like, oh, well, you're through it or whatever. I'm not ever, I think, going to get through it. I don't think I ever will. There's always going to be a part of me that's angry or sad or resentful or wants to figure out what happened or how it happened or who did what. Or wants, to have a witch hunt, to burn people at the stake, whatever it is. But really is having those moments, right? To have conversations like this and just feel it, it's real and it always will be. And I cry my eyes every year. I mean, last year I wrote a song. But I just can't, I think there's the moral is, I don't think there's anything wrong with giving up. You know what I mean? Either. I mean, whatever it is,
understand that, right?
but I just really try to make him happy, or if he walked into this room. I had this weird like twisted dream that my mom like sold him to like a cartel, and he showed up a few years later and was like, hey, I was actually like alive the whole time, right? Like, granted, your brain does weird things, but if you were to walk into this room right now and I looked at him and I went, this is what I've been doing since you passed away, would I be proud? And I think if I was still trying to like get vengeance, or if I was still stuck in my anger, or whatever it was, and I wasn't trying to heal, that I don't think I would be proud of myself to tell him that, you know what I mean? And I think that's the biggest thing is like, I try to use his memory to motivate me to live up to the weird morals that kid had at the age of 8 or whatever it was, because it seriously is more than I think I would have by myself. You know what I mean? The role models that some of the people I have weren't great, but I think back and it's just like being proud. And then I think it was a cool thing about connecting with you is that I could be like, I am proud. I am sitting here today thinking of Jake every day. And weirdly enough, I mean, not that anybody, I don't even know, me and you didn't talk for years, and we ended up same spot, right? And that's powerful.
What happened is that we were still connecting on Facebook.
Yeah,
because I think we connected on Facebook through Messenger when I first started doing the nonprofit work.
Yeah,
and we talked briefly here and there.
We messaged. Yeah, it was like, hey, but it was like Facebook message,
and just another, right? And then when I started podcasting, you were like, hey, I saw your podcast. I was like, hey, thank you. If you ever need anything, let me know.
Yeah.
And then we went to speak to each other for a little bit, and then next thing you know, it was like, we finally was like, hey, you mind if I call you? Like, yeah, most definitely.
Well,
And
yeah.
that's when because I can understand, like, like both of us, everybody's out doing their own thing. No one knows what's going on with the next person. You don't know how I feel. I don't know how you feel. Only thing I can do is go, man, I just wish everyone the best. But I want to make myself available if I can be. But other than that, I'm like everyone else. I don't know what to do.
Yeah,
I don't,
totally.
I don't
Wishing
know what to
everyone
do.
the
So
best. Yeah.
yeah, we just do our best, right? And then when we exchanged numbers and we talked that one day, I
Forever.
knew it right then and there. I was like, if you would allow me to be a part of your life, I would love to be a part of your life. And you was like, oh hell yeah. I was like, cool, I get that. And then I talked to your sister, and it was the same thing. She was like, I really love talking to you. I can't wait to talk to you again. I need to reach out to her to let her know when I have availability so we can talk. But so much more though. So much more because we're in a place now to where these conversations, doing what we do, it honors um, it honors Jake in a way of remembering, because we do say his name. We do recognize that he was real, right? Because for the longest time, I thought I was living in a dream. Like, was it real?
Mm-hmm.
Because the way I saw it, and this is coming from a parent, the amount of pain that I was in and still in, right? I just learned how to deal with it a little bit better. But the amount of pain, the depthness of the pain that I was in, I cannot describe it.
Mm-hmm.
If if I could, if you gave me a blank piece of paper and said, describe what you're feeling, I would have to leave the paper blank. That's how that's how bad that is. I wish that pain on no one. I wish that pain on no one.
Yeah.
But it's the reality that has I had to face that it happened. He was a real little boy. He was an amazing child. He was a good brother. He was a really good friend. And I have to face the reality that um, it's not coming back anymore. And that's the
Yeah.
reality that I have to face every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it does make me sad. It does make me sad because I thought I had forever with him, but I still do have forever with him. I have forever with him through the stories that people share with me, through the work, through the opportunities that life has thrown my way, um, through the love that's not only received but given,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the hope and inspiration that we give to other people to help uplift them. I no longer live in a world where um, tragedy runs me.
Mm-hmm.
I live in a world where tragedy is just another stage of lessons, of developing better morals and responsibility for myself and others.
Mm-hmm.
And just another stage of love, right? You know what I'm saying? Because how can you love someone in their dark place when you've never walked in a dark place,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I feel that.
So,
I mean, you
and
said it earlier. It's like, how do you describe what you went through? But there's something very unnatural about being in so much pain that your brain overrides the will to live.
right. And I've
Um, and you know
been
what
there
I
and done
mean?
that way.
And I had that in grief. I've talked about it earlier. I had that because of abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Combination of the both of them
Yes.
but that still doesn't put into words what it is. And I think, um, there, it's the most powerful thing you can go through. It's
Yes.
the teacher, you know what I mean? I
It
think
is definitely a teacher.
pain's a teacher, but it's, I sit here and I try to be glad, and I try not to be angry, and I try not to be resentful, and I try to grow, and I try to be proud of myself, and I try to be gentle with myself, I think too.
Yes. Yes.
Um Not very good at that. But 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 it's really, it really is just moments like this where I'm glad that his energy can't touch that many people. I remember when he passed away, he went to the same elementary school I did for a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
His second year
weird,
over at PFK.
weirdly enough, he had some of the teachers I had, even though not the
Yeah.
same grades.
Oh yeah, they know.
Um, which
We
is
know your
funny.
sister.
You know what I mean? Um, which is funny. I remember, he was gonna have the teacher, if he would have lived, he was gonna have my third grade teacher in my third grade year. Um, or something. Like he was and it was, and so, I I just sit here and I try to, like, I just really try to hope that people heal,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have, I don't hate a lot of people, and I don't try to hate people. I don't actually really know if I even do, but the biggest thing is I hope that, and I think Jake would want this, is I hope my mother can heal, and I hope that she can stop hurting people, and I hope she can heal
But,
from it. And I hope,
um,
and that's what I think I wanted to say
yeah.
with this, is that if Jake was sitting here right now as a 16-year-old, I don't know where he would be. But I know for me and you, he would be proud of us for healing. And
Yes.
I can't have some relationships in my life right now. But I think that was the biggest thing I learned from losing Jake, is that I can move on and I can grow. Uh, but the healing portion of it, I was such a big part of it. And I feel
Yeah.
sorry for people who can't, I feel sorry for that. And
We
I
wish them.
really, I'm really just glad that, uh, I really just hope that he's proud,
Yeah.
or he would be
And
proud. So
I'm
whatever I
sure he
believe in on the
is,
day.
man. You know what I'm saying? And but I do the same thing. I wish those individuals the best in this world. I wish them healing. I wish that they take the time to heal themselves and become better. That's all I can do.
I
Other
also
than
hope they
that,
stay the hell away from me, but do it over
yeah,
there.
hey, I'm
Uh,
okay with them staying away from me too. You know,
but
just like you, Jordan. You know,
I hope they heal, and I hope everybody through this whole
yeah,
process, to the pharmacists who mix the medication wrong, to the doctors who might not have done anything the first time around, or the doctors who had to see Jake die, or the kids who were
yeah,
friends with Jake,
yeah.
or whatever it is. I just hope that people are able to heal from it, and I hope that
They will.
with this conversation, people can make that
Right.
ability to become better people with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's touching to hear how extensive it is. I mean, again, I haven't really even been back to the state really much,
Right.
so um it's been a really great conversation.
Yes.
I'm glad to have it, and
We're gonna have plenty more because we
we're gonna
got
have
new
plenty more.
episodes coming up. Yeah, we got new episodes coming up, and things like that. But not only that, you know, you got a wedding coming up, and I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. We're going to rock that wedding. You know, like if I
Oh
could just sit
yeah.
in the front row, you know, what I'm saying, just to watch you walk down that aisle and marry the the love of your life, that's an honor for me, right? You know what
I
I'm
feel
saying?
lucky
I
to
don't
be able
have
to say that.
right.
I think about that sometimes with my partner who I've been with for almost 4 years. If he were to interact with Jake, right? I mean, let me
No,
tell you, they would talk so much shit about me together. Like but they would love each other, you know. And thinking about those relationships, about like how like, I mean, you're in a similar position, right? You have a
yeah.
partner, how
Well,
the you know, and like,
but the crazy
you know,
part about it is her son was born on the same day as Jake.
are you guys celebrating today at all?
Well, to be honest with you, um, it's been a rough day. I wasn't sure how it's going to function. When we first talked, and I said, "Let's do it." It was such a great idea. And then when I woke up this morning, or when I got home from work this morning, I was sitting there, and this overwhelming of sadness came across me,
Mm-hmm.
and then that pain set in, and I'm just sat in the living room, sipping on my coffee, and turned on the TV and found a YouTube video of Jake, and it was everything that I can do to not fall apart. So I guess I could say I did celebrate, just not in the traditional way that most people do.
Yeah,
I wanted to remember him. I wanted to see the videos, but then I realized that, you know, how much it hurt. And then I sat there and I got myself ready to come into the office today, and I sat here and I'm looking at the StreamYard. Then you messaged me. I was like, yeah. And I'm gonna tell you, the best decision I ever made was not to call and say, "Hey, we want to do this on another day."
mm.
The best decision I made was to get up here and have this conversation with you. So yes, in a way, I'm celebrating with you. That's
Yeah,
in a lot. No, not even in a way. I'm celebrating this day with you for something, for someone who impacted us in such a great, awesome way.
yeah. I
That
mean,
we share a common connection,
I think this
right?
is the
And
first time I
knowing
got to
today,
have a conversation about him
right, an in-depth conversation about him.
at at all. Especially on like the day he passed away. The closest person I have to this situation isn't super big on talking about it.
Yeah,
And talking about it on the days that stuff happened, it's so. Yeah, I mean, I similarly, I woke up this morning. My cat was being a pain in the ass. Uh, and it was raining harder than I've seen it rain. Then I got into like a very, very minor car accident, which was stupid. And then I went to work and right, this was my morning. And then but then those, and then I was like, but I worked this morning and, sitting there, I was trying to do the math in my head, of like where he would be and where I am and where I was when he was his age. And it all hit me a couple hours before, um, I was, sitting at work and trying to focus on rock climbing with, disabled adults. It was, something all these kids have no idea, these people have no idea that this is this day for me. Um, and it hit me, like, oh my God, like I was 16 when he died, and he'd be 16 today.
yeah,
And that
yeah,
was so hard for me because, like, boy, did I not care at 16 about how fortunate I was to be in the situations I was in, no matter how bad my life had been.
yeah,
and how I don't know what Jake would be doing. I can't tell you, but I just had this feeling that he would be soaking up every ounce of life he could get in every way he could,
Yeah.
doing everything he could. And it was really, really, it is hard. Every year I think it gets hard because the longer I get away from it, the longer I can remember his voice or his face or certain things or memories, right? And it's but I don't know. I think it's really is just like is this thing that I'm so glad that we were able to have this conversation because I don't think I ever really get to talk about this stuff on the days I'm feeling stuff with people who want to talk about it or can't talk about it or feel the same way or feel like I feel like some of the people I'm around who are emotionally connected to it aren't emotionally connected to the part that I am, it's and
That's no.
so it's really it really is just it was a very scary thing to do this in a sense because we said a lot and we don't and we're very honest
Yes. Yes.
um but at the same time it has probably been the most healing conversation I've had to have about this also knowing that other people get to hear this and connect your story even further and to
And
be able to
yours.
like and mine right to hear it
Yeah.
because I don't know. I feel like my position to this is a little bit different than other people who are in Jake's life just because I went through it with him up until,
Yeah.
so it's very much like it's such a gift to be here, and it's such a gift to like I don't know, be able to sit here and say that I'm proud of myself and that I managed to get through it and that I'm not letting it destroy me and that it hurts every day, every time I think about it.
Mhm.
I have his ashes on a shelf and and what I have of them and I have my memorial that I have and I have the thoughts and the plans and the pictures and the stuff, but I think like this this is something to talk about it, right? To like have that duality, right? Of like it's not just in my brain, right? It's not just my memories, right? Like you like I remember, I don't know if you remember this. You were there for it. I walked into the room the day he was born. He was born on the C-section. So
Yes.
he was planned. We knew what day he was coming. But C-sections are really scary, right?
Yeah.
And you got there at like 5 o'clock in the morning. My older sister was in charge of watching me as an 8-year-old at 5 o'clock in the
Yep.
morning,
I remember.
and she had pink eye when she woke up that morning. So we were sitting in there, and I remember you walking out and being like, he was born. Do you want to come see him? After sitting and by the way, C-sections aren't like a 30-minute process, right? I was there for hours.
Yeah.
And and so going in and being able to hold him and looking at him and as an 8-year-old child looking at him and going starting to cry and go, he's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
He
And
was a pretty baby, wasn't he?
oh my god, he came out perfect.
He was
he
such a pretty baby,
he
man.
had a hairdo too. He had a mohawk.
Right. He had that little turnover in the front of his head, right?
I would sit there, I'd take the little comb and like brush his hair and like,
Oh
you
my
know,
God, man.
and the nurses were making fun of you because he was pretty white when he came out.
Okay, so the nurse pulled me off to the side and she goes, "Are you sure this is your baby?"
I mean, but you look at it, but like I'm not okay. I don't know.
Think about it.
I think all of my siblings, Jake and my older sister, we look like our fathers. I have like my mother's coloring, but like let me tell you, Jake has your face, Jake has your ears, Jake has your
Yeah,
eyesight.
but he didn't. Remember when he
But when
was born? He
he was
didn't have no characteristics of Tony. None
no.
whatsoever.
He had your
That nurse said,
ears.
that nurse said, "Are you sure that he's yours?" And I
Yeah.
looked, I was like, I had to think about it for a split second. I was like, "Yeah, he's mine." She goes, "Okay."
You know,
And I
uh
just started dying because he didn't have the nappy hair. He didn't have. I mean, yeah, he had the small ears, but he
blue
had
eye.
bluish green eyes.
Yeah. Light
And
skin.
oh no, he was beyond light skin. You know that boy was white. Come
Well,
on
yeah.
now.
He would I
Come
mean,
on. He just
he
started getting a
darkened up
little tan
eventually.
until he was already like 2 or something.
Yeah,
But that boy
he got
until he
color
finally figured
eventually.
it out. Yeah, yeah,
Well,
he
well,
was doing his own thing,
I think
you
back
know.
to it, and my hair's straighter than I'll ever be. I'm not gonna lie, my hair is like super straight. And but we have the same hairline, so I
Yeah.
have two cowlicks here, I have two here, and two on the base of my neck. Jake's mixed, right? My mom's white, Tony's black, and Jake had this curly, like wiry
Yes.
mixed hair, but with my hairline. My
Yeah.
hairline, as with my hair as straight as it can be, is hard to cut. And so every time I get my hair cut and I go to a barber and I go, "This is how many cowlicks I have," I think of him because I
Oh,
would look at his
he had
hair
his
and be
own
like,
barber. Oh
"Yeah,
no, we had to take him to Great Clips, right? And once we found the right lady, oh, he fell in love with her. He fell in love
I."
with her, right? You know what I'm saying? Always confident. Oh my God, you're beautiful today. And this, that, another. Like she go sit him in the chair. She already knows what to do, right? And she
Yeah,
was like, Jake, I got you. She put on this little thing. He sits up there and he's, you know what I'm saying, he's serenading her, call himself trying to sing and all kinds of stuff. And she's like, oh yeah, that is so beautiful, Jake. While she's doing his hair. Never even misses a beat. Gets up, gives him a big old hug, you know what I'm saying, gives him some candy, and we go on about the day, and he gets his hair cut. And that's how she knew how to cut his hair. So he had his
his
own little, barber that we took him to. And he just thought he was the coolest thing in the world. She
he
likes me, Dad.
he thought he was so cool. He wanted to be
Oh
the
my God,
coolest.
he did he? Oh
That was his thing, was
my God.
being cool, man. Oh my god, I think about it too.
Yeah.
Another thing that I always think about him, um, what was it? There's always these like little things that pop up in my life that I can't help to think about him. When he comes up, and yeah, his haircuts is the one thing because it was just his hair was impossible, but we had the same hairline, and which is just wild. He was just like the sweetest kid. I don't know, but
He's
it's
definitely
I don't know. I look back on like the pictures that are out there and the pictures that I have, and I don't know, man. He would
yeah,
I don't I wonder what I think back, I'm like, what would he have been look like as an adult or a 16-year
right.
old,
Oh,
like.
look, I'm pretty sure that we'd have been trying to keep him from getting all kinds of stuff, girls, whatever he would have been into. I'd have like, look here, son, look, you can't go around doing this, okay? You just can't
Yeah,
go around doing that, all right? If daddy can't do it, you can't do it, right? I think he would have been a character though.
he was
I
funny.
think he,
It's funny.
I honestly think he would have been one of those dancers, you know what I'm saying, like the dubstep dancers or something like that,
Mm,
because he was figuring that stuff out, right?
yeah.
He was definitely doing that. Or now here's something else. He would have been one of those kids that competed in Lego building stuff. Because that's what he did. He built stuff out of
Yeah.
Legos, drones, you name it. I mean, he he had a big old pile of Legos in the box, and he would dump them out, and he would just put stuff together. Now they all belonged to some point to something, right? Dinosaurs, planes, the Star Wars, whatever, right? You know what I'm saying? So he
Mhm.
had wheels, he had it all, and it would never end up the way that he thought. I mean, he did make a horse out of Legos one time, and then he made like a little secret box that you could do things with out of the Legos. So I know he knew how to figure that stuff out. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
He was so good at math. Like he
Oh,
couldn't talk
oh,
until he was like
ooh,
almost 3. He couldn't
yeah.
talk till he was almost 3-ish. It was pretty late. Or 2 it was
No,
late though.
actually, he was talking before then.
He couldn't talk like as well as he could for a while.
Well, as well as
But then it picked up, but the thing that he could always do was like, well, actually it's a lie because I remember him. There was something weird though about his communication. I don't know. I remember it like
well,
dipped
because
or
his mother kept him in diapers. Remember, for a long time, and then she kept
oh
breastfeeding him for a long time.
that
So
she did breastfeed him wicked long. That well,
right,
do you know
really
why that
long.
is? Do you know what? Oh, I know. The reason that is because she was drinking and he would
Right.
he would get sick every time she stopped nursing him, but it was because she was withdrawing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
she was so active in alcoholism when she was breastfeeding
Yeah.
him.
And
That's
when I found that out, I was like, oh no, no more of this.
so no, that's
But
what that was.
Jake was talking. I remember when we first started supervised visitations over at the Harmony House, and he was come down there and he was shy. But when
Yeah.
he first saw me, I was like, "Do you know who I am?" And he looked at me. He was like, "Yeah, you my daddy." I said, "Oh my God." I said, "Come here." And he didn't want to come to me at first because I am just a stranger in his life,
Yeah, it's
right?
been a while.
Um, and when he finally realized that I was going to be there for him, I couldn't stay away from him, and he couldn't stay away from me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It didn't matter. He knew. He just knew my daddy's coming to get me.
Mm-hmm.
Here comes my daddy. I'm with my daddy today. And look, me and him hung out so much, he got tired of me. Okay, you know what he told me? Okay, so I'm gonna be real brief because I gotta take off as well. But so he told me one day we have been hanging out so much. I was like, Bubba, we got movie days, we got Chuck E. Cheese days, we got Applebee's days, we got days that we're going to go do stuff. On school days, we got to get ready for school. All right, you know what I'm saying? Get to go home from work, do your homework, go outside to play, come back in, have dinner. We're going to watch a movie, take a shower, take a bath, go to sleep. You know, we had a routine.
Mm-hmm.
He got so tired of me. He goes, "Daddy, you know I love you, right?" I go, "Yeah, most definitely." He goes, "You know I love spending time with you too, right?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You ever?" I and he stopped and looked at me. He goes, "If I say this, are you going to get mad at me?" I said, "No, I'm not going to get mad. What you got to say?" He goes, "I think you should get a girlfriend because I love hanging out with you, but sometimes it's a little bit too much. I want to hang out with my friends, and you should go hang out with your friends."
Yeah.
I said, "Are you done? Are you tired of hanging out with me?" He goes, "No, Daddy." Then he stopped and thought about it for a minute. He goes, "Yes, Daddy." I started dying. He goes, "You need to get a girlfriend." So I was like, "I don't know where to start, Bubba." He goes, "Well, they have that thing called online dating, right? Maybe you can do that." And I'm thinking to myself, like, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say? Oh no, he said it. He said it. He was done hanging out with me. All right. He was such a character, man. He was such a character, and so I did. I was like, all right, I'll start online dating, and then I found the girl that I was dating for a while, Tammy, and he liked her. He was like, "Isn't this so much better than hanging out with me, Dad?" Oh my God, some of the things that he would do, man, or say, and the situations he would put me in, very briefly, I'm gonna share this situation with you. So we're going through King Supers one day, and I'm buying groceries, filling up the grocery cart. Now I'm not paying attention to what he's doing. He's grabbing his stuff, he's putting it in there. We getting busy, right? You know what I'm saying? We just buying some groceries. So he runs over, he looks at me, and he runs over to the back of the store where the florist is. Now he's looking at me, looking at him. So now I turn my head, and he done peeped up at the girl behind the counter. So he's watching her, and then he's watching me. So now I'm turning around. The girl done bent down behind me. So now I don't even know the girl is there, right? And so he looks at me. He goes, Dad, sometimes you just got to stop and smell the flowers. And bent down, and he took off down the aisle laughing. And as he's doing this, I now realize what he did as the young lady gets up from behind the counter. She goes, oh my God, that was the most coolest thing I've ever heard. And I'm looking at him as he's laughing at me.
He set you up?
Yeah, he set me up. And I was like, I'm looking at her going like this. I'm looking at Jake, and Jake is dying. He is dying laughing. And the girl goes, that's beautiful. I said, I don't know where you got that from. She goes, well, she looks at me with this little grin on her face and says, well, he had to get it from somewhere. And I'm looking at Jake, and now he's going down the other aisle, and you can hear him laughing as he's running down the aisle. So the whole time, I was like, I am so sorry. My son, I was like, I have no words. Okay, I'm so sorry that this happened, but I got to go get him real quick because I'm going to fight him. Me and him was about to fight in the aisle. Okay. He did that to me all the time, man. No matter so we had this little thing that we would do no matter what we did, where we was at. It was who can embarrass each other, who can embarrass the other person first. So it didn't matter where we went. You know what I'm saying? If I had the opportunity to humiliate and embarrass him, I was going to do it. And he would do the same thing to me. I tell you, it was so much fun.
Story, I'll give you one last story before we go, is you said King Supers, and it put me back to this memory. He was just able to sit up in a cart. You know what I mean? So under a year old, maybe. I was in King Supers with my mom. We're getting groceries. Get through the whole grocery store. We'd gone through the produce aisle at the beginning of the store, so went through the whole entire store, checked out. We get out to the car, put his stuff into the car. Jake's still in the cart and the seat thing. And all of a sudden he gets this like shit-eating grin on his little baby face. And from behind his back, he whips out an avocado that he had hidden behind his back and stolen from the grocery store. He was so proud of his avocado that he had hid it behind his back, waited till we got out to the car, and was like so proud of this avocado. And we're like, do we take it back inside? Like, what do we do with we were like, sorry, my baby stole an avocado, or do you just like take the win? Like, what do you do?
There ain't a whole lot you can do at that point. Like, there ain't a whole lot you can do at that point. Sometimes
it's not like you can teach him a lesson and be like, walk it back inside.
Yeah, you won this one. It's all good. It's all good. Oh my God. Kane, thank you for such an amazing conversation. This has been great to catch up, you know.
It's been really nice.
Get to know more about who you have become. I look forward to, watching you grow and being a part
to have
of
you in my life.
Yeah, most definitely. We got a lot more to do. And for anyone out there that is that will be tuning in, thank you for tuning in. This has been a great ride. It's been emotional. It's been touching. There's been laughter. And of course, there's been us holding back the tears of everything. And I want to thank you guys just for coming on this journey with us.
I also
This
apologize if you've heard my cat. It's almost his dinner time, and he's been
Oh
meowing.
no, you're good. No, you're definitely good. But no, it's been great though, right? You know what I'm saying? It's been definitely great. And so, and thank you,
Anytime.
thank you for being on today. Thank you for sharing your part of the journey,
It's been amazing.
and just letting this old man know that I wasn't crazy, right?
Let me tell you, this young man feels crazy all the time. It's called gaslighting.
Oh my god. And with that being said, you guys, until the next show, this is the conclusion of another episode of Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. Of course, we got more coming your way and things like that. But if you guys have made it this far, do me a favor, go to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time we drop a new episode. And until next time, you guys say their name, honor them, and don't be afraid to be emotional when you do. It's conversations like this that help us heal. So it's time to heal through the conversations that we have. You guys keep your head up. I love you. Till next episode, peace.